Hello, welcome to the podcast today, Unrealist. If you wanted to talk about fix and flips, Airbnbs, today is your day. We have a great guest with a ton of experience that can speak directly to that market. But first, I want to talk about our Unreal stat of the day. In preparing for this podcast today, I was looking up Airbnbs and what's going on in that market. And one of the first things I saw was that Airbnbs now represent 20% of the total lodging market, which blows my mind. Like I even though I'm a user, I would never think that essentially 1 out of 5 rooms are now Airbnbs. So it's just become a gigantic movement. And obviously, it's impacted our clients, people that are buying and selling property, people that are living in neighborhoods that have these units. And so I think it's a really great topic. So let me introduce our guest today. His name is Brandon Sandefur. He has 22 years of experience. He owns 8 Airbnbs and a farm in Tennessee, which he also operates as an events venue. Fun fact, Brandon's country music song, Walking Backwards, became the inspiration for an international line dance, which is amazing to me. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So thanks for being here. Tell me about how you got into this. I understand you got this really diverse background in entertainment and now real estate. How did you get into buying and renting out Airbnbs and investing in real estate?
So I guess that's where I begin with. I'm a jack of many and a master of very few.
All right.
But I started off just 22 years ago, and I was. After my entertainment career had sort of fizzled out, 2 songs don't make a career. And so I was able to, at that point, kind of transition over into the finance world. And I worked in mortgage finance for 22 years. And at that time, I began to really get my arms around transaction, what goes into it. And from there, we began, my wife and I, my partner in crime. Today's our anniversary, by the way, 22 years. But
congrats.
Thank you. She and I jumped into that together, and we started small. We bought one house, renovated it, fixed it up, and flipped it. And we like to say that we were doing this well before Joanna and Chip Gaines. We were Joanna and Chip before they made that thing popular, and we had a really good a good handle on kind of what was our niche and how we were doing things. And we didn't go overboard at first. We bought something small that we could manage, and then began to sort of just spin it from there. And
did you have a specific? Sorry to interrupt you. Did you have a specific, region, whether it's Tennessee or I know you're in Florida now? Do you have an idea of like, okay, I know if I can buy low in this neighborhood or this city or this town, I know I can flip it if I make these changes. What was your sort of insight around that?
Well, so I was, being in Nashville at the time. That's where I was residing for most of at that moment. We knew the parts of the city and the parts of the town that we could go to and purchase a property at a reduced amount, fix it up, and we knew that we actually saw this growth trend coming little by little, and we were there on the ground, boots on the ground already. So we sort of targeted the areas that we went to and the things that we did and the properties in and of themselves, because for that reason, we wanted to be able to move them quickly. We didn't want to hold them for long periods of time. Yeah. The idea was to get in, do the work, flip it, and get out. And so we were very fortunate from the standpoint that we were informed about our market. I would offer that to anybody that's getting into this, is really know the market that you're going to be buying in, because we're in Florida now. I mean, 9 of my properties are in Pensacola, Florida, but they're all, Kyle, within 0.3 of a mile of each other, which is another big thing, because we know the area that we're in and we're able to manage them. That's another big piece of it that people forget about is, when you have 1 or 2 things that are going awry, you don't want to have to drive 41 miles, 30 miles, 15 miles, even 5 at times can be kind of arduous. Sure. So that's sort of how we arrived in those markets. We knew the markets that we were in. We did our research, and we made sure that we made purchases and acquisitions that were in areas that would render the right result for us.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I think it's funny because you hear about people, especially during the pandemic, where they were, trying to buy properties, second and third properties, just over the internet, away from which is really easy to do now, by the way. But maybe you're working in New York and you're hearing about the Sun Belt being really hot. And so you say, okay, I'm going to go pick up a property in, where is Alabama or wherever it is, right? And so people have had some success with that. But it sounds like you have an edge when you can actually be there, service the properties, know this sort of 0.3 of a mile radius that you're talking about.
I don't have the confidence to jump out on the internet, nor do I have enough knowledge about markets around the United States. We all get the same publications, and the same information is available to me as it is to any other investor out there. But I'm a big believer in really and truly knowing, having hands-on in that particular area, because when it gets right down to it, if I'm not from there and I really don't know the lay of the land, those can be problematic, because again, when you're buying something out of state, far away, what you deal with is your maintenance and upkeep. And it's very difficult to do a lot of that stuff when you're not in that market that you currently purchase the property in. So it's just difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For me, that's not for everybody. I'll say, I don't want to discourage anybody if there's people out there that are ambitious enough to do it and make it happen and make it work. And to them, my hat is off. But for me, I think for us, just the security of being able to get in the car and drive 2 blocks to see what's going on here, that's important to me. Got
it. So, we talked about Airbnbs a little bit, this unreal stat with, essentially Airbnb equaling about 20% of the lodging market. Tell me about your experience specifically in that market, not just the fix and flips, but when you're buying a property, getting it ready to put on Airbnb, renting it out, these short-term rentals instead. Tell me about that market and how it's been evolving.
So I'm not surprised at the statistic. I'm allowing I'll definitely say I didn't know that was the number, but I knew it was high. And the reason I knew it was high was we've been in it for 4 years down here in Florida, and I believe 4 years ago when we got in, it just felt like, man, we were really turning and burning. We were short-term rentals, people coming in left and right. But over the last 2 years, what we've seen is a massive deluge of properties coming online. And so now your clientele, everybody that's wanting to travel or to rent, or they've got so many things to choose from now that the competition has become very, very stiff. And we just last week reduced our rates on our properties to get back in the game, because really and truly, at the end of the day, it's about putting heads in beds, as we say. And so if we don't do that, we've got to get competitive. And so some of our properties really and truly are well below what we have rented them for in the years past. But we've seen so much in way of choices. I mean, people just have so many choices now. And what you're also seeing is we've seen a flux of investor groups, say 10, 12 private equity groups coming in. You've got 10, 12 people in that group, and they just go in and buy a bunch of properties. And you're seeing, those folks, they'll turn it over to a management company. The management company will get that return of 10 or 12% that those people are looking for. And they really are just kind of hands off. So we're seeing so much more of that institutional type involvement now, just as opposed to just the average person, that like myself, that started off small and grew into it. So it's become a very hot thing. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. I feel like on our platform, we find that sometimes as much as some months as much as 40% of the activity is institutional. Just like you're talking about, these are private equity, asset managers, REOs, and it really kind of blows my mind sometimes. And I think it's something that's kind of missing in the sort of general, conversation among people that are, buying and selling real estate, like the regular consumer, not professionals.
Right.
That, I think last year nationally about 15% of the homes were purchased by private equity. That's kind of a new thing, right? My mom and dad, when they bought their home, they didn't need to compete against Wall Street when they did it, right? So it really brings a new component, and I wonder what that means for home ownership going forward.
Kyle, I'll tell you this just from my lending side of experience. I see this trend continuing on for a while, especially in a rising rate environment, because people just can't buy the home that they could have bought 2 years ago based on a 7% 30-year mortgage. I saw that yesterday, is where 30-year fixed rate mortgages have gone to 7% now. That's not extremely high. I mean, relatively speaking, compared to where we've been for 10 years, yes, it's high. But reality is it's still a decent rate that you can afford a decent size home. But most people at this point will probably step back and say, instead of spending, X number of thousands of dollars and an interest rate that's not palatable to me, I'm going to go into this rental market because now I've got a lot more to choose from. And maybe I'm okay with paying some rent for a while, because if not, I don't get the house that supports the things that I'm trying to do. So, I would say that's not a trend that's going to go away anytime soon until rates begin to temper a little bit and we get some more inventory on the market. That's the biggest thing right now. We don't have a lot of houses to choose from to buy. There's lots out there for rent, but there's not a lot out there for sale.
So I know that during the pandemic, it was this weird thing where, there was this dip in travel and then this really amazing spike. And especially with Airbnbs, because people wanted space. They didn't necessarily want to be in a crowded hotel. Have you seen that? And I know a lot of people, what you're saying is a lot of people have started, investing in becoming hosts and therefore dumping a lot of inventory on the market. But from just a sort of consumer, standpoint, what are you seeing still a lot of activity for people coming into your Airbnbs?
There is, but I think what's interesting to me now is I think what you're seeing is a lot of people, they want to get on the bandwagon, right? They're late to the game. So they're jumping in and buying these properties. And what I'm seeing now is we're seeing people buy properties at the tippy top of the market. They're taking mortgages out. They're assuming that they're going to rent and the rental income is going to pay that mortgage. I think where we're going with this, with a lot of the Airbnb people who are putting their toe in the water, you're going to see people liquidating properties in the spring of next year or sooner, because that all, again, as we talked about, the inventory being so vast, people have the option to go anywhere they want to go. Rates have been reduced. Maybe that rental income is not covering the mortgage, and now they're stuck and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I got to get this off my books. And so the next thing you see is, for an investor, we're sitting back with a little bit of dry powder over here in the corner, because we're like, hey, come March, there's going to be some folks that are going to need our assistance. And we'll probably buy some properties in this spring that are at a reduced amount from some of these Airbnbers who just, jumped in at the last minute or got late to the game, I should say.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. So I'm on a couple, I'm in a couple group chats and a couple, groups online, and I keep hearing this thing about spring over and over again. There are a group of people that are, and I guess I call them a little bit more sophisticated, right? So they're looking at the rates and they're a little bit high, but a lot of these people remember when rates were at 18%. So they look at it and say, "Oh yeah, everybody, they're high, yeah." But they're kind of waiting and feeling like 2023 is going to be just a massive opportunity to pick up a lot of property. So it's funny. I do keep hearing this. It seems like that's sort of an undercover trend. So it's funny that you're saying that. Yeah. So okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's a pretty common theme, and it typically happens when we have a correction. You typically have. Those corrections will create opportunities, is what happens. Yep.
Okay, so you're deep in this game. You've been doing it for 2 decades. What are maybe two or three things that you would say new investors in the space, new hosts should be thinking about when they want to buy these Airbnbs and get into it?
I would say the most important thing is to make sure that you have enough capital to be able to support anything that may go awry while you have the ownership of the property. For instance, I think we discussed it at one point earlier. We had 4 air conditioners in one summer go out in just 2022. And it really was kind of an eye opener for us, because we never suspected to have to make those types of investments in those properties all at one time. But I would say to
Right.
the new person getting into the game, make sure that you are liquid enough to be able to accommodate some of those curveballs that you're going to find, that are thrown your way, because, it was an eye opener for us. We kind of realized at that point, okay, we now know that we need to have this much in reserve for the rainy day, because you just don't know when things like that are going to happen. So I would say it's always a rush in to go do the things that you're excited, you're ready to go. Just make sure that you're capable of supporting that venture before you get too far down the road and you wind up having to be one of those that has to sell to get out.
Yeah, dry powder. Yeah, I love that. Do you feel like we've certainly seen the people rushing in. We feel like there's perhaps going to be some sales this spring. What are some other trends that you're seeing in this sort of Airbnb market?
I think that from the standpoint that we talked about with the investor groups, I think that's one side of it. I also believe that more than anything, your trends in Airbnb seem to be moving more toward residential areas. And I would also caution that, when you decide that that's what you want to do is go into the Airbnb business, make sure that you're not purchasing a property in an area that is restricted and won't allow those things, because we've seen some of that too. And I think what you're seeing a lot of is, as your institutional investors get in and they go buy these properties up in the subdivided areas.
Yeah.
And they find out all of a sudden that's not allowed here. The next thing you know, you've got a bunch of mad investors going, why did we buy these properties? Well,
Right.
and I've seen that trend because of, again, the shortage of housing. So you're seeing a lot of people go into these subdivided areas and buy a block of houses up.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, so that's a trend that we're seeing a little bit of. I think that you're also seeing along those lines, those same developers that are building those subdivisions are coming in behind with covenants that say, time out. We're not doing Airbnb. Yeah. You're not doing short-term rental in this little area here. So,
yeah, I have a couple friends in Arizona that have told me that it's become a very hot spot for like bachelorette parties.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, you move into your house, you got your kid or whatever, and all of a sudden you don't realize that you move next to like the biggest party house that's just every week it turns over a new bachelor party.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that can be tough.
Yeah. And that being in Nashville, that's the bachelorette capital of the world. And so you see that quite a bit in Nashville. A lot.
Yeah. Okay. So, we touched on this just briefly before, but I think it's interesting. So whether you're, where you think about the air conditioner that's going to go out, or, being prepared for just having a little bit more capital. We've always found that, especially with our clients, one of the big places for savings is on the commissions, right? When you buy and sell these properties. In fact, it's one of the only places where you can save a good chunk of money. On our platform, people obviously it's automated, and so you're immediately sort of saving because there's no sell side commission. But I don't think you've used our platform before. So how have you handled commissions, trying to cut those fees out? Because I know it's critical when you're doing this for profit.
I did it the old-fashioned way, and I went and got my real estate license. I just felt like, I said, I'm not going to go sell real estate, but at the same time, I'd like to represent my half of the transaction so that I can save those commissions. That's the only reason. I'm not really looking to be the next big real estate tycoon. I felt like it's every little bit counts. It all adds up. And I just felt like that was what I did. I think that at more sites like yours and more things, there's so many opportunities now for people to do it on their own. And I think that's really, for me, mine is more from an investor standpoint. But if I'm somebody that's out there, I make sure that I go to a place like this particular website to do what I'm trying to do, because it's, there's great realtors in this world. Let me not say that, not every realtor in the market should be in the market, but there are some really good, informative, very, very educational people that have that real estate license. But there's a lot that aren't, and so you got to feel your way through it. And for me, that was the best thing for me to do, is just go get my real estate license.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I mean, we always sort of, internally, the way we talk about it or think about it is that we're not even anti realtor or anti-real estate agent. In fact, we have a team of agents that help, guide all of these transactions that happen on our platform. We are anti-commission. And so we've tried to figure out a way, and this is why we built all the software around it, where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. For it in particular, we get a lot of folks like you, because even when they have their own license, because we're taking some of the annoying administrative stuff that you would have to do on your own, and we're just automating it.
Right.
But yeah, we find a lot of clients that are investors, because they're really trying to cut. How do I still sell this home and get the same price for it, but without paying that extra 3 to 6%?
Maximize your profits.
Right?
Every bit counts. And when you get into the business where it's what you do, you will watch everything that you spend. And that's
if you're doing
one
it
of the
right,
biggest expenses that you can go to and actually impact. So
that's right. Especially if you're doing it, 8, 10 times, 20 times, right?
Right.
Like really starts to become a really big number.
Sure.
Okay, so I just want to do a short recap. It sounds like you've been in this business for a couple decades. What you've seen is a lot of what we call noobs, new people jumping into the market, putting a lot of inventory on, and maybe not preparing with the right amount of capital back up. And so capital is really important if you're going to get into this game. It also sounds like that 20% number, although we, both of us kind of heard of it just recently, like it makes sense to you, because you're really seeing a lot of activity in the space. But I would say the number one takeaway for me, because I've always wondered about this too, and I have a couple friends that have been like, hey, we should go in together and buy, an Airbnb or something like that. And it's the capital. It sounds like really having that backup. And also the other thing I think that you said that's really important is really knowing your market, which it's hard for us, because sometimes we think, all my friends are kind of all over the place, and so you have to kind of decide on where you would put this thing, but it has to be somewhere that you really know, where you know the market.
When you watched Michael Jordan play basketball, it was effortless, but when you went out and tried to do what he did, it was crazy hard, right?
Right.
And I don't liken this to that, but it's that same extreme. It's like it really looks easy from afar. And then when you get in the middle of it and you really get the brass tacks of it, you go, there's a whole lot more here than I ever imagined, And so that's just, just enter into anything that you're doing with eyes wide open, be cautious. I'm a guy that's a glass half full. So, I look at downturn as being correction. Correction then creates opportunity. We start back over and we cleanse the palate, if you will. So, it's just, there's a lot of good things that come from a good correction. And I think that at this point, it's just inform yourself. Make sure you know all that you need to know.
No, I think that's great advice. All right, so now it's one of my favorite parts of the show. We're going to do a sneaker/fit check. Today, I think I'm going to go with the sneakers, and I'll go first. It's a pair of, wait. These are P448s, which is one of these weird brands that, I think end up in like your Instagram feed or whatever. It's direct to consumer. I think they're made in Italy or something crazy like that. Cool. But they are super comfortable and they match everything. And so that was my choice today, the P448s.
Well, to your point, I guess I can go with I can go with sneakers as well.
Here we go. Let's see it.
Because the On Cloud is the same.
Oh,
the On Cloud is the most comfortable tennis shoe I've ever put on my foot, and I've been a big proponent of them. But shameless promotion here. We at Grand Sand Properties is my website, and you can go and look at all of our properties on the Grand Sand website, www.grandsandproperties.com. And then we've also got Sage Creek Farm has a website, which is www.sagecreekfarmtn.com. And, you can get an idea of sort of a flavor for what I'm talking about by going and looking at these properties. And, it might just help you as a resource tool to just say, okay, this is the guy that was on here today. This is what he's doing. Wow, maybe we can do this. Maybe we really, should try this. Or maybe like, whoa, I see what he meant. So, I think that, because it's, it's almost like that watch what you wish for, because, you could have it, but shameless promotion there. But, I really do encourage people to to check out our website, and you come down to Pensacola. If you're looking for an Airbnb, we've got some. So, but that's to me what I think is most important is just inform yourself. Really inform yourself.
Yeah, I love that. That's part of what we're doing here. Thank you for being on the show. I'd love to have you on again. I have a million. This actually brought up a million more questions, and
Cool.
I'm already. I just got a text message from a friend separately about this, and so I might hit you up on the side. But I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kyle, for having me, and I'm available at any time for any kind of just a few words of encouragement or. Hey, don't do that. I'm here for both. So thank you very much for having me.